everybody. Welcome to ABA Inside Track, the podcast that's like reading in your car, but safer. I'm your host, Robert Perry Cruz, and with me, as always, are my fabulous co-hosts.
Hey there, partner. It's Jackie.
And it's me, Diana. Howdy.
Howdy, you stole my line there, Diane. It's Alan, your book club guy.
What? If Alan's here, it must be a book club episode. Yay! I was gonna do like a whole bit and then get into the segue that this is a book club episode, but we recorded a lot of episodes for July, and I am forgetting sometimes how to start the podcast. Do you ever have that moment where you're starting to, like, you're talking and you're doing something you've done a million times and you're like, I actually don't know what comes next, and you're just saying words and hoping they come out? That's the start of a lot of podcasts this month. It's been a lot of fun recording, but it is hard to remember how to start the show. So we're going to get started talking about behavior analysis and behavior analytic research. In this case, since it's a book club episode, we're going to talk about a book, a whole book. So sit back, relax. So this episode is coming out for patrons in the summer of 2024. If you are not a patron, then you are getting this in the summer of 2025, a year later. That's okay, but then that means you do not have a complete set of the summer of book club that we did this year or last year, whenever you're listening to this. And FOMO, you should probably subscribe.
Rob finds an incomplete set unacceptable.
I don't know about you, but do you know how many podcasts I have subscribed to their Patreon simply because they were like, and then we did a 3-part series, and part 2 is on the Patreon. And I'm like, well, I guess I got to go there now.
They're numbered. That's the worst.
Oh my God. I've joined like 2, at least 2 is the number. I know, but I love their content, so it all works out.
It's nice to support.
You know what? Support your creators, folks. Support them. So it's me, it's Diana, it's Jackie, it's Alan, and we are here talking about a book that did not win a poll. However, we have put out so many book clubs for this summer of book club that when it came time to say, how do we fill one more slot? We just said, well, what was the second choice book that we all actually wanted to read that didn't win? And let's do that. And so that's what we're doing today. We're going to be talking about Pat Friman's Good Night, Sweet Dreams, I Love You, Now Get Into Bed and Go to Sleep. From 2005.
Can I just say how funny my child thinks this title is? And it sits in our sunroom where I work, but also where everybody comes in and out of the house. And literally every single morning for the past 3 weeks, all I hear is, good night, sweet dreams, I love you. Now get into bed and go to sleep. So it has been fun. And I'm also excited to finally put this book away so I don't have to hear it tomorrow.
Nice. The cover reminds me of Elf when he's like, oh, good night, sweet dreams, I love you. Or I don't know exactly what he says.
I love you, I love you, I love you.
That's
when he's getting the candygram, but when he's getting tucked into bed, I feel like he also goes through this whole series.
Yeah, you know what? Spoiler alert, Pat Friman's book does not tell us what to do with our adult elf children to get them to go to sleep appropriately.
Nope.
Mm-mm.
Maybe second edition. We'll see.
I was just going to say it's not to be confused with the Adam Mansbach pseudo children's book. Go the F to sleep.
No.
Yeah.
Oh well, Alan, you haven't seen the podcast art for this episode, but let's just say I took a little bit from that.
I see.
We have a copy of that somewhere.
That was all the rage for a while to give that to people at their baby showers. So we did end up with one.
I think it peaked when I think it's still available online. LeVar Burton did a public reading of that book in his Reading Rainbow persona, and it was hilarious to watch as an adult who had some Reading Rainbow as a child.
Oh yeah, I love me some LeVar Burton.
Me too.
Can't get enough.
So why don't we start by talking a little bit about the author, Pat Friman, who...
Patrick C.
Friman.
I'll tell you about him.
PhD.
Jaggie's so excited she's going to read, not verbatim, but she's going to read from the back of the book.
So Patrick Friman works at Boys Town, which we all know because he loves Boys Town and loves to talk about it. As of the time that this book was written, he was the outpatient behavioral pediatric and family service. He was the director of the outpatient behavioral pediatric and family services clinic. He also served as a clinical professor of pediatrics at the University of Nebraska School of Medicine. At the time, he was the editor of JABA, He has authored more than 140 published scientific papers on child behavior and has held faculty appointments at Johns Hopkins University School of Medicine, University of Pennsylvania School of Medicine, and the University of Nebraska. So this man has moved around. But he's not ended up in the Northeast somehow. I don't know what's he doing.
Well, he's in the Northeast every fall for the Babbitt Conference. He's done a keynote every single year I have gone to Babbitt since I was a graduate student.
Is he there every year?
I think he's been there every year. I think he's done a keynote every year.
He hasn't done every year, but it's many years.
He's like he goes. I cannot remember a Babbitt I did not see Pat Friman talk, and it is always like the standing room only. Everyone went to see Pat Friman. It
doesn't get old. Everyone wants to hear him talk. It's like a great way to kick off the conference because he always has something.
He came to our
inspirational
trivia
to say.
He came to our Babbitt trivia last. I feel like I have never said hi to Pat Friman,
even though I've been to
like 15 Babbitts with him there. He was at our trivia event where clearly like we are people of some note because we're hosting the trivia. You think I could have gone over and be like, "Hi, Dr. Friman, it's so great to have you." And I was just still too scared. I just didn't.
I did.
Just couldn't do it.
I asked him. Yeah, I did. I talked to him.
He spoke at for one of the companies I used to work for, and like gave a direct training sort of centered around his Circumstances View article that is rather famous.
Yeah.
But just generally, hyping up behavior analysts, especially because he comes from that broader like child psychology. And just because I happen to know off the top of my head, I think currently he's been upgraded. He's the vice president of behavioral health at Boys Town. So, ooh.
I thought he was like the mayor of Boys Town at this point. He's been there so long.
It would
this book's almost 20 years old. So
so Boys Town is a Catholic organization, and I'm wondering if he's Catholic. He never talks about his religious affiliation, and I always wonder. I'll ask him next time. Like, so are you Catholic?
Jay, next time you talk to Pat Friman, tell him like, Rob Perry Cruz really wants to talk to you. He is too scared though. So
I have this note for you, Patrick Friman, that says, "Do you want to be my friend? Circle yes or no," and then I'll talk to you, Rob. So hopefully, hopefully that will happen for you.
He's funny in the sense that he is a great public speaker and is very amusing to hear, as well as very well spoken. If you're following along with when this comes out, we've just done an episode on public speaking in which Pat Friman is referenced many, many times with special guest Mandy Ralston. That should have just come out, or it's about to come out. I can't remember where we are on the schedule. But he is one of those kind of folks who is much more about practice. And when I think of like great researchers who've published 1 million articles, I don't usually think of Dr. Friman. However, there are so many awesome topics like anxiety, mental health, like you mentioned, Alan, kind of contextualist view. There are so many pieces he's written, and it's like he's sort of like the Velvet Underground, where it's sort of like, well, he doesn't write like prolific tons and tons of research articles, but when he writes one, it is one that comes up so many times. Like it is referenced, to the hilt. He's sort of like the quality over quantity kind of publisher or researcher.
Well, he's authored over 145 articles, Rob. So I think he's got the quantity part down.
Well, yeah, but as of 2005,
as of 2005, and so that Circumstances article that Alan was referencing is titled "There's No Such Thing as a Bad Boy," and was a relatively recent publication, 2021, maybe, if anyone's looking to look it up.
No, but I think he's one that
it's really good.
It's like a special, like he publishes something. It's a special event kind of an article. He's not like folks who, and I don't want to denigrate like folks who are like every month they got another article. Oh my God, I have to read another article, because some folks I think just have such a great breadth, and it's great seeing their publications. But he's one where it's sort of like occasionally you'll see his name as a publication, and Ben, you better read that article because it's going to be good.
Yeah. One other thing though, it should be noted, even though it's called Boys Town, girls can go there now too.
Okay, that is good to know.
Yeah.
Boys Town was referenced.
He's not a professor that has an ongoing research lab for which the purpose of is to continually create new experimental research projects. So you don't see him on those types of publications as often.
Yeah. One thing I remember, because I did not know about this book until maybe like 2012, 2013, I think. I certainly wasn't picking it up in 2005 straight out of college. But I remember hearing at one of the keynotes he did at Babbitt, him talking about sort of his thoughts on the book. In one of his talks, he did mention that there was like a moment when this book came out that he was being, asked to speak on mainstream areas, like Good Morning America kind of shows about like, this guy knows about sleep and how do you get to sleep, and how he specifically mentioned, and again, I'm paraphrasing something from probably over 10 years ago, so forgive me if I'm off, but sort of mentioning he didn't want to be the sleep guy. And there was like a hot moment where we could be thinking of Pat Friman as, talking head on any sort of popular news show about sleep. And he specifically did not want to do that. And I'm sort of wondering if that's why we haven't had like a second edition, or if this is just one of those books that the way he wrote it is kind of evergreen in terms of here's how you would handle sleep for most people. The end. There's not much more to say. I don't know.
I think there is more to say than this book says.
Well, in general about sleep, yes.
This is very general. I do want to make a comment that it is not affiliated with the Catholic Church anymore. It used to be Father Flanagan was a Catholic priest that started it, but now it accepts all faiths. So I just wanted to make sure and say someone's going to write in and be like, it actually is not religiously affiliated anymore.
It's not a Catholic school.
It's not a Catholic school, no. So just want to make sure that I clarified my statement after I said it. So.
Okay, thanks, Jackie.
Thank you, Jackie.
Now, folks listening might say, why are they talking so much about hearing Pat Friman talk when we're talking about a book? And I think part of that is because if you have ever seen Pat Friman talk, this book reads like Pat Friman is hanging out with you and reading the book to, like, it is so written in his speaking style, as much as a writing style can correspond to a speaking style.
He's like,
this felt like
with you. He's like, do you want take a minute? I'm going to read. Take a minute. Go get a sip of tea, and then come back.
Like the audiobook version of this, I can't imagine. I mean, I imagine the audiobook version would sound like reading this book was in my head in terms of just hearing his voice. So again, if you don't know who Pat Friman is for some reason, then you'll read this book and be like, oh, this is a good, solid book. It's like a really good kind of intro to basics of sleep and sleep treatment for sort of, the broadest audience possible. And it's written in an entertaining way. But if you have seen Pat Friman talk, this book is very much him. It is very much written in his speaking style, which is something I wish I could write in my speaking style.
You can get some of his, you can get the classic flavor of his speech on YouTube as well. Got a couple good ones up there.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. I don't know if he's wearing the sunglasses and the vest and the bow tie, though. That completes the look.
Or his suspender. He does suspenders a lot. He's a very, very good look. So when it comes to this book, I think the only like downside, and I don't know if it's a downside because it's not part of the purpose of the book, is that this book is very clearly written for like, hey, do you have any sleep problems? Or do you have a young child and you're kind of scared about how will I get my kid to go to sleep? This is a very broadly written book, which is a topic that Dr. Friman talks about a lot. The idea of like, why aren't we using behavior analysis to reach a broad audience rather than just focusing on specific groups? So if you are like, I need specific tips on how to work with this specific type of sleep problem, you may or may not find what you're looking for in this book. If you are like, I want to have a baseline of what are decent, good sleep practices that the average family might use, this is a book for you. So again, if you're looking for like intense sleep treatment, you're not going to find it in this book. And I don't think Dr. Friman is hiding that. I mean, he specifically mentions this will cover these issues. It will not cover those.
Well, and sorry, I'm just going to hop in there because I would even say that that's actually a strength of the book, in that if I've referred a parent to this book and they've tried the things in here, it gives me enough information with some further like just behavioral assessment follow-up to be like, all right, then we do need to start investigating more specific interventions for sleep, because these are go-to things I would have parents try before I developed some sophisticated intervention. I would want them to be like, well, here, let's try the sort of tried and true methods to see go with what works.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I totally agree with you, Alan. We did an episode recently with Emily Barron about sleep, And we talked about topics like sleep hygiene and the idea that sleep hygiene is so much more complicated than like, have a set bedtime and here, have a Snuggie for your child. Like there's so much that goes into sleep hygiene. So much of the waking day is related to your sleep hygiene. And while I don't think this book gets into some of those more kind of intensive nuances, it really does think about sleep as a component of your life as a parent of a child or a caregiver of a child, and how that fits into the bigger picture of why is sleep important and what is the purpose of sleep hygiene and sleep procedures beyond just, I wish my kid would go to sleep, which I thought was I really didn't expect. I really, I love the format of this book, but I really didn't expect so much sort of big picture. Why does it matter that we get our kids to sleep on time beyond just, medical reasons? Children need sleep to function well.
It's helpful.
I don't know, but Diana, what kind of were your thoughts on reading the book? Diana, I know you agreed that it did read like, a Pat Friman talk. We were talking about that back when we were both reading it.
What are my general thoughts on the book? I enjoyed the book. I think that as someone who has had a lot of kids, whose kids have like gone through all of this, I'm like, oh, some of this maybe I did a good job of, and other things I kind of wish I had read this book back when it came out in 2005, because it would have been with me throughout my entire parenting journey. It's not the only place you can find this information, but he does summarize it in such a conversational way. He's definitely talking to parents in the book, and he's never like judgmental about the challenges that parents face. And I think that there may be questions that you still have remaining from the book, because he tries to cover a lot of ground in a relatively short amount of time, but he does give you a good general like sense of how you might approach sleep challenges for children. And it's a quick read.
Mm-hmm. Jackie, how about you? What did you think about the book?
For me, I actually really like this book. One thing I loved, and it's kind of a spoiler for later on, is that I like the chapters were categorized in like infancy, toddlerhood, elementary years, and then middle school and high school, because you don't think about sleep problems as kids get older, right, as being the same importance of when kids are like infants. Like I never ever am like sitting with a mom's group and they're like, OMG, my middle schooler keeps crying out for me. Right? Like that's just, I haven't heard that. I mean, maybe I'm not in that group yet, but it's, I have friends with middle schoolers and high schoolers, and that's not something we've talked about. So I like that there's, it's not just like, oh, if I have a baby, read this book. It's like, oh, if I have a child, read this book. And so I really liked that. I did find some parts a little snooty, and maybe I was feeling sensitive, but who knows, right? But
how do you mean snooty? Like high horse, or
maybe a little bit, and not the whole book. It was just like maybe when we get to chapters, there's like some lines in it that maybe like rubbed me the wrong way a little bit. But as a overall book, I really enjoyed it, and I would recommend it to people. And maybe it was just feeling sensitive, like because I didn't do that, or who knows. But I was just like, oh, that felt snooty.
Well, okay. And Jackie, what I would say is I think that I definitely saw those lines as well, but I think it's often one of those places where sort of in his speaking style, you see it too, and I get where he's coming from. He's just trying to really hammer home his point authoritatively, but in a conversational way. And I think your interpretation is 100% valid, because I did see that in places as well, because I even earmarked one of them.
Yeah, I did too, and it wasn't like the whole book. I don't think the whole book has a really nice conversational style, like you said, and I think it could be really comforting. But there are a few parts where I just went, huh? Right, like,
yeah.
But
you're always at risk when you use an exclamation point in a book. I think it's like, how is the audience going to take it? Yeah. So maybe it was those times when it could definitely be taken different ways. And the same with attempts at humor, too. Yeah. some of them felt a little bit like an older generation.
And I mean, it is an old book too, so maybe, like if I would have read it then, I wouldn't have felt that same way. But
right, yeah, and he might write it differently now.
Right, who
but
knows?
Overall, I liked it. I liked the conversation.
Yes, I definitely liked it.
I really appreciated how it built on itself in a very effective way, because I think it's very hard when you're writing a book to format the book, to craft the narrative where you're giving information, you're building on information that came before, and there's a sense there's a through line through your entire book rather than just the sense the book is building. Like I'm sure, and I think we've had some on the book club where it feels like they're talking about these basic concepts, and then they're going to build on those concepts. And then at some point, they just add so many concepts, you're like, I don't remember what this book is even about, and it's very frustrating to read. Whereas this book, I think, really threaded that needle of building on itself while still using a format that didn't get too boring. So I think that's the other problem you can have with the book, where you're like, I'm going to be very slavish to, here are the points I will make in every single chapter. So, the book's set up very much to be, what are sleep problems and treatments for infancy versus toddlerhood versus elementary versus middle high school. And it keeps coming back to the same themes in each chapter. And that could be very boring, but I found that there was just enough repetition and novelty per chapter to leave me always feeling like I was learning something new while still kind of coming back to those key components of why is it important that we get our kids to go to sleep on time beyond just, well, because don't you want to get enough sleep? Like, we're humans, we need to have X amount of sleep at this point in our development. Like, it went beyond just sort of the medical need for sleep, which I thought was very cool. And I really did appreciate just that format. And it never got boring in that way or overwhelming.
Great. Yeah. Cool. Alan, your turn.
I was just gonna say some points that I really liked in sort of his style, especially, is that he's efficient in very many places. Of like, I could really pad out the length of this book by repeating advice I've already given, where instead he's like, and I addressed that in this chapter on like. So please go, refer back to there, because he is talking about, as you say, he's got it structured sort of the life cycle of the child. And so sometimes, so just revisit that method you tried before if a new problem pops up. So I think that's also sort of what's nice about it. I don't see what was I think in terms of big picture, one thing I would love to hear him talk about or update the book on would just be electronic media and bedtime interference. Right. Because I think even some of the recommendations that he has about coupons and motivation would be more complicated to implement with electronic media in the picture.
Yeah, that's a great point, Alan. I know our oldest child is in high school and he has a phone, and we didn't watch it as much as we should have. So we're trying to do a better job with our middle child, who has a phone as well. And he is very understanding of, I shouldn't have a phone in my bed. Like, we've talked about the reasons why. We've talked about where it gets charged. It's supposed to live outside. But then he brings up, but I want to wake up. I want to start doing some extra activities in the summer. And so he wants to use it as an alarm clock. And even small subtleties like that, is he really using it as an alarm clock? Or, he reads a lot of books. Like, the schools are great at giving kids access to lots of books on an iPad. So when he wants to read some of these books, we're excited he wants to read, but he's got to do it on a screen. Yeah. Which means if he wants to read before he goes to bed, well, he's got to bring a screen to bed. And, we have plenty of paper books and everything. But if he has something he really wants to read, it's really hard to tell a kid, no, you're not allowed to read the book you're super interested in because it's on a screen. Because that is a subtlety I don't think preteens and young teenagers quite understand.
And for me, it's even the idea that certain paces of media, I think, will interfere with bed more than others. Mm-hmm. Because so for that, I think there could be a technological recommendation of, we'll put those books on an e-reader or something. I'm thinking about especially young children who almost seem to rely on electronic media as a self-regulation strategy. And so it directly interferes with like winding down for bed, because if they don't have access to this device, they seem to be more escalated, but accessing the device interferes with their sleep. And so coming up with a behavioral intervention that's as trauma informed as Pat Friman really tries to be, I think would be really beneficial for a lot of parents and for us professionals.
Yeah. I mean, we're coming up on 20th anniversary. Perhaps there'll be a special extra edition. I haven't heard anything because I didn't talk to Pat Friman and ask him questions like that because I was too scared. I probably should have.
I'll write that also. I will be like, do you want to be Rob's friend? Circle yes or no. Are you going to do an updated edition of your book? Circle yes or no.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's what I want. Thank you, Jackie. I appreciate that.
Good. I'll work on that. I'll drive to Nebraska.
You work on that.
Because obviously I have to give him that note in person.
Yeah. Whew. All right. Well, so overall, I think this is a book we were all very positive on. But let's take a little break, and when we come back, let's get into the book itself in more detail and talk about some of the pros, the cons, the things we would update, and the tips that Dr. Friman has.
Do you want to be a BCBA?
Sure, we all do.
Now you can come to Regis College in Weston, Mass. to get your graduate degree.
Choose from any one of these courses.
Masters of Science in Applied Behavior Analysis.
Masters of Science in Special Education.
Dual degree in Special Ed and ABA.
Or be eligible for your postmaster's certificate.
You can complete your degree and be ready to sit for the exam in 2 years. And our 2017 grads had a 100% pass rate on the BACB exam.
Come enjoy practicum placement support, ethics mini handbooks, PhD-level professors, small class sizes, and a service trip to Iceland.
If interested, don't delay. Supplies are limited. Learn more at regiscollege.edu.
Again, that's www.regiscollege.edu, regiscollege.edu. One more time, www.regiscollege.edu.
See you there!
And we are back talking about Sweet Dreams. Good night, sweet dreams. I love you. Now get into bed and go to sleep by Dr. Patrick Friman. So if you are listening to this, you are either getting this a year from now in 2025 or beyond, or you are getting it in 2024 because you are a patron. And thank you so very much. Remember, our book club episodes are worth 2 Learning CEs. And if you are a patron at the $10 and up level, guess what? You have not just 2 code words you're going to need to remember, but a third one on the original post on the Patreon page that will give you a 100% off discount for this episode. As a big thank you from us for joining and subscribing on our Patreon.
Yeah, on the Patreon.
That's right. If you're getting this in 2025 and you're not a patron, you're going to get your code words like normal. Yeah. You don't need it. That's fine. You can go to the store or purchase it like normal. But if you're thinking you want to be a patron, patreon.com/ABA Inside Track to get all of our book clubs as they come out and to get that discount. It's a really good value because we've done a lot of book clubs over the years. I'm just saying. But everyone will need to know this first secret code word, and it is evaporated. 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 The process by which a liquid becomes a gas. That's what it is. And it's the past tense version of that. So the liquid's all gas now. It's all gone. Like the tears of the child who doesn't want to go to bed. Those tears have evaporated at this point. It already happened.
I always think of evaporated milk.
It could be, yeah, how is that evaporated milk? Because it's still a liquid, isn't it?
It's just like, it's more condensed, but it's not sweetened condensed milk. That's a different product that has like a lot of sugar added to it. It's like delicious. But evaporated milk's just a milk.
I'd be super pissed if I bought a bunch of evaporated milk and I opened it and the milk just shot out of the can. It was gone. In any case,
I have a word of warning to the Patreon subscribers in that there's a non-zero chance that you join Patreon, come to some event, and then you start doing podcasts and book club podcasts, and it never ever stops.
It's, you know what? It is true. That's a good warning. Be careful if you join the Patreon because you might end up doing book club.
Because that's how I started.
That's right, Alan.
Or is that a positive? Like, we may ask you to come. It's like, what's that movie with Mark Wahlberg where they ask him to be the lead singer of the band? He goes,
Boogie Nights.
That's not
I was thinking of Fear.
No, that's the one with Reese Witherspoon where he's like a crazy boyfriend.
I love that one.
Evaporated.
All right. So let's get into our discussion of Good Night, Sweet Dreams, yada, 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 book club. Let's start talking about Dr. Friman's book. So this is broken up into a number of chapters. The first few sort of discussing general sleep as a biological function, and then getting more specifically into, at this age, here are some things you could do at this age. Here are some other things you could do, some troubleshooting at the end, et cetera, et cetera. So chapter 1, the basics of sleep, gives you some good, simple sleep facts. And I think we talked about this kind of in the preamble part, but I do love how this chapter goes so far beyond just the idea that one should have sleep because it is important biologically to do so. It really gets into how just debilitating sleep problem of any member of a family unit can become, in that if one person is not getting enough sleep, that person is now not handling life issues as well as they could, meaning everyone is not handling life issues as well as they could. So it's not as simple as like, well, Billy's not sleeping very well, sucks for Billy. It's rough for the whole family. And there's a great quote on page 3 to 4 that lack of sleep can lead to, quote, a toxic state in which the whole family, children and parents alike, experiences harmful physical and emotional effects. Now, do we all think, when we think of sleep, do we think about it as such a pernicious thing? Like, I guess we're fortunate enough that we're at a point where our kids are pretty good at sleep. We have a pretty good sleep routine. We did it where, you only notice it occasionally when somebody doesn't get enough sleep, like our teenager who is passed out on the couch in the room outside our recording room right now from whatever he did last night. He was home. I don't know what he did. He stayed up late. I don't know. Did a device?
It's his business.
It's his business. He's at that age where it's like, yeah, you're going to go to college soon. You're going to handle this yourself.
Was there a question in there?
I think there was.
Yes. I think sleep is very important. And I'm not talking even about children, but I know when I get a bad night's sleep, or when I get less of the number of hours of sleep that I normally get, then I am a bear, right? I'm a mean person. I'm short-tempered. I'm grumpy. I eat a lot. It's like not a great thing. Diana, if she wakes up at the wrong part of her sleep cycle, is also.
I think, Jay, I'm going to edit that. If Diana wakes up, she.
But right though, so I do think sleep is super super important in that way, that it really affects your whole day, whether you're a child or not.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I'm not a parent and will likely never be a parent, but I can assure you that your children's sleep is very, very important, especially as someone on the clinical side of things, like this classic, like 2.12, considering medical needs. Like if sleep is disrupted, I am not confident and that my behavioral interventions will be effective.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Because there is too much at risk if there is not good sleep.
Mm-hmm.
I heard of a study, and I told you about this already, Jackie, where they limited people's sleep by a certain degree. I don't remember the degree, but it was significant. And they found that they ate 500 extra calories the next day if you didn't get the proper amount of sleep.
I am experiencing that today. Just putting it out there.
Right. And that's not insignificant. That will make you gain a pound a week.
Whoa. What if that's the only 500 calories I ate?
It's
extra.
Above.
It's extra.
Yeah,
okay.
so like you're free sleeping, free feeding, caloric intake, and when you're restricting sleep, your free feeding caloric intake increases by 500 calories.
Yeah, it is happening here. It's happening over here. I've had 2 nights now where I've not slept a lot, and I can tell.
Mm.
Yeah. Yeah. So it really does affect everyone physically and emotionally. And that's certainly a cascading trickle-down effect throughout a family unit if you're all trying to, steer this ship together.
So this is a book for families. It's a book covering sleep problems, not sleep disorders. Problems are things that families can resolve, usually just talking about the target behaviors of problems around going to bed, staying in bed, and then staying/going to sleep. And it usually resolves through work around skill deficits in any of those areas, whereas a disorder is something that requires additional support from other professionals. So this is, again, a sleep problems book, not a sleep disorders book. And it's pretty common. Dr. Friman quotes 25% of children in the U.S. as of 2005 have some kind of problem that gets in the way of their sleep quality. I would guess that number is higher these days than it was back then, due to the proliferation, like we were talking about before, of devices and screens, which can have a biological effect on one's ability to sleep. He mentions some books, Dr. Jody Mindell he mentions, Dr. Ferber he mentions as folks who've written books on other kind of sleep disorders. And he lets parents know, or folks reading this book know, these are can't problems. My child can't go to sleep. Versus the problems he's working on, which is, if this were in place, then your kid could go to sleep. However, it's not. But in the case of this book, it's really about folks who do not need a medical professional. You should be able to use these strategies. There are a lot of reasons that you might not be able to use these strategies, because this book is sort of written for a very, very wide audience. So we'll bring up a couple times when it's like, I don't think this is going to be as easy as it says in the book. However, for the most number of readers, follow the tips in this book, and you will have a child who goes to bed, stays in bed, goes to sleep.
But not forever. I think that's another thing he brings up. It is not forever. You may have to re-implement things depending on vacation, sickness, right? There's...
Oh, yeah. I mean, you can keep coming back to this book. And
that, for me, that was...
Well, and then I just even want to...
Go ahead, Alan.
Oh, sorry. I was just going to say, I wanted to add, I think also it's an important part of the conversation is that if you are really concerned about your child and aren't getting heard by your medical professionals, if you can, this book is nice because you can say, I've tried this, I've tried this, I've tried this, and maybe start speaking the lingo that unfortunately medical professionals sometimes need to hear to take you more seriously as a parent, which is unjust and unfair. But it's a nice, if you got to start somewhere to be taken seriously, this is a useful book for that as well.
Mm-hmm. That's a good point, Alan.
I really liked the distinction between the sleep problems and the sleep disorders. I thought that was useful, and I was like, oh, yeah, I don't know that I had couched it in that terminology before. But he's not saying that you should attempt to tackle those larger sleep disorders on your own via the advice that's provided in this book. That is a situation where you would want a medical professional or someone who works in these areas to assist you. This is just about commonly occurring, according to your child's age or developmental level, sleep challenges that can probably be addressed via a few tweaks in the way that you're helping them go to sleep.
So one thing we haven't really talked about is what is sleep? And that does come up in this chapter. Now, this book is not a book about sort of all aspects of the sort of the physiognomy of sleep, which is very fascinating. You know, there is some mention of the stages of sleep, the idea of, you know, the human body going through multiple sleep phases, the idea that we do wake up multiple times in our sleep. However, based on a number of factors, we tend to go to bed and not remember these or perceive that we woke up at these. So there's a little talk about more of the biology of sleep. And if folks are interested in the biology of sleep, there are a lot of great kind of research articles in sleep literature as to what happens in sleep, you know, looking at EEG readings. And for example, I took a great
a whole class, right?
I did a whole undergraduate class with Dr. Mary Carskadden about sleep. I loved it. I think it was the class that convinced me I should do undergraduate as my major in college.
You did not good at sleep, though.
I'm great at sleep. What are you talking about? I sleep. I go to sleep. I wake up. I'm great at it.
Also, I just want to clock that the word physiognomy rather than physiology was used, but we don't have to dwell on that. I just want to note that users who may be persnickety about that, it was noticed and it has been corrected, and we're moving on.
Thank you, Alan. I knew it started with PH, and then I kind of got a little hazy. Perhaps because, as Diana said, I ain't getting no sleep last night.
No, but you're so good at sleep. You go to sleep and you wake up.
That's right. That's what you need.
Every day.
So, definition from the book. Sleep is, quote, a natural periodic state of rest for the mind and body, in which the eyes usually close and consciousness is completely or partially lost, so that there is a decrease in bodily movement and responsiveness to external stimuli.
That's a good definition.
I made it up. No, it's from the book. That's a quote.
It's kind of difficult to define, I think, but he did a good job.
Yeah, I mean, there's the biology there. There's sort of the common sense definition of what sleep is or is not. I think, it's all in there.
It passes the infamous dead man's test because there's a mention of consciousness.
Yes.
Yeah, I guess so.
It's only partially lost, so you have to be somewhat conscious.
For me, it is completely lost.
But it returns. That's the important part.
Yeah. It comes back.
It's periodic rather than perpetual.
Yeah. I have come to understand that I'm very, very fortunate in the way that I lay down, close my eyes, immediately fall asleep, recollect absolutely nothing for the next 8 hours, and then open my eyes as though no time has basically passed. That's how it is for me to sleep.
Yeah, stop humble bragging. That's ooh, I can go to sleep.
There is a really great chart, it's the Ferber chart from Dr. Ferber. A lot of folks might know from the Ferber method, that describes how children need sleep based on their biological needs in terms of the number of hours. I'm not going to list all the numbers, but sort of, how much does a child under 12 need? How much does a child in high school need? And then sort of the change in the number of hours of sleep needed up to adulthood is sort of how the book then gets organized in terms of, younger children, older children, middle children, right? But I loved having this chart handy, and it comes up a few times in terms of when you are using kind of the concept of extra bedtime as a reinforcer. You want to make sure you actually know how much sleep should my child get, because it's no good if you're allowing them to stay up and get 4 hours of sleep. It's not a helpful reinforcer. So knowing that or having that chart handy is useful. And I think one thing, if folks are saying sleep behavior analytic, or can we do behavior analysis when it comes to sleep? I think that the other thing that I really liked about this book is all of the strategies discussed really they don't focus on sort of the biology of sleep. They focus on behavioral principles. Every strategy proposed discusses the idea of reinforcement, praise, teaching a skill in a situation before the skill is needed, reinforcing positive behavior, stopping negative behavior, correcting misbehavior, and all with a context that, again, I don't think I remember reading about as much in mid-2000s articles in my graduate work. But all of this is only going to work if you have a caring and loving relationship with your child. And I did appreciate that, because I think one of the things I see in a lot of kind of popular parenting books is a lack of that context of, if you just do these tricks and your kid hates you and you hate your kid, they're not going to work. You haven't done the requisite pairing with your child. So it's not a bunch of, tools in the toolkit. This is something that you're doing as a part of a number of steps that relate to a meaningful and appropriate and important relationship with the children in your care, which I don't remember seeing in a lot of things written in the mid-2000s. So it's, again, very forward-thinking, not very strange for Pat Friman to be thinking about this stuff, because he did write about contextualism. But that idea of that has to be a prerequisite. You have to have that relationship already in place.
I just want to point out, it's an interesting, it's a sign, I think, of the age of the book, that in this first section, he does talk about parents start to develop more sophisticated discipline strategies. And he just sort of lists bedtime as a punishment strategy without talking about the side effects of that. So I think that's probably something that would be edited in a new edition. Mm-hmm. Because I think that it's not advice that I would see in a book like this written today.
Mm.
Whether you get sent to bed early?
Yeah.
Oh, I send my kid to bed early sometimes.
Oh yeah, I know, but I think the way he talks about it, he would probably add context, not remove the recommendation, but just talk about like if your child is having sleep problems, the downside of this approach might be they may become resistant to the idea of going to bed.
Yeah, you're right.
I think
like,
in later
you need to go to bed.
Yeah.
I'm not tired. I'm not tired.
But he's specifically talking about if your child is doing something unacceptable, send them to bed early as a punishment. Send them to bedtime early as a punishment, as like in a discrete unit of time potentially. Not a lot of discussion about that in that chapter.
Yeah, and I think the later chapters and talking about working with your teenager, bedtime
negotiation
with your teenager, he does go into more detail of how do you set this up so that early bedtime is less of a punishment and more of late bedtime as a reward.
Yeah.
But I think you're totally right, Alan. There's a real subtlety. And I think that's true about a lot of even like parenting books that we've really enjoyed in the past. I think there's a real subtlety as to how do you present the same information, and if you are doing it from a place of I've built this and it's part of the relationship I have with my child where this is reinforcing your appropriate and later behavior, or you're kind of reinforcing contingencies. It's great, but if you do it at the wrong time, it is punishment, and it is going to damage the relationship with your child, even though topographically, if you watch a video of it, it may look exactly the same, or you may say the same things to your child. There are a lot of other pieces that go into parenting that, again, this book gets into sometimes, though, like you said, does not lay out quite the same way I think we would want to be thinking of it 20 years later.
Yeah, and just to swing in his defense, he is very clear that like it's one or two 30-minute units, but still, I would expect Pat Friman today to maybe add that little asterisk remark of don't be excessive using.
Yeah, right. Like it's noon. Yeah. Go to bed.
Right.
Oh. All right, moving on to chapter 2. Children need sleep, and here's why. And again, I think we kind of mentioned this a few times. Certainly, it's important to have optimal health outcomes. Your child needs to sleep so that they replenish their energy. They also, because we think like biologically, if you don't sleep enough, you kind of go a little, you go a little wacky, right? You can't process information as well. You don't do as well in school. But this goes into so many other things that I never really thought about when it comes to sleep, is that sleep also helps children learn how to handle distress. It teaches them how to follow instructions. It teaches parents how to use discipline appropriately, right? The last part, parents get a break. I definitely got that part. From day one, having a child, my child going to sleep and getting a break was one of those things that I always felt kind of selfish about. Like, I feel so bad. I want my kid to go to sleep. But realistically, parenting is hard. And when your children go to sleep, having the knowledge of I get at least 30 minutes, if not a little bit longer, to myself or to be with my partner is so valuable. And I don't think anyone should feel bad or punish themselves for wanting period in which their child is not demanding something of them. That is okay. If it's 100% of your day,
Dad.
100% of your day, not so good. But you deserve some time for yourself, parents.
I can say that with certainty, my child has an earlier than most bedtime precisely for that reason, because I go to bed early because she gets up early. And so her bedtime is, it's less than her peers. So I feel okay about it.
I mean, you just kind of, mathematically shifting it, right?
Yeah, kids really do need a lot of sleep, and that's when they grow as well, and that's when all of us, like, our bodies repair themselves and our brains work through what happened during the day, etc. So there's really, really important reasons to sleep. There's this thing called fatal familial insomnia. Have you guys heard of that?
Yes.
No.
It's a genetically passed down disorder that this one particular family in Italy, I think, suffers from, but they can't go to sleep. And it onsets in the early adulthood, and then eventually you die because you can't sleep.
Ooh.
So yeah, be glad you don't have that. And kids should sleep.
When
it helps you grow big and strong.
I'd love us to share if any of us had kind of thoughts on some of the, other than the fact that we should sleep so we don't die. I think one thing from this chapter that I hadn't really thought of, I think as explicitly as Dr. Friman writes out, is the idea of learning to go to sleep as learning to handle distress better for young children, in the idea that going to sleep is a stressor, in that you are, as a child, because I don't think about it like that. I mean, I think about it, I don't want to go to sleep in terms of like I have a lot of things to do, or I have something I want to get done, and I'm going to sleep is going to get in the way of that. But I never think about it as potentially children might think, in that sleep is a removal, as far as they know, of everything that they could ever want in their lives, and how that is so dire for a child, where it is not, it's more of an annoyance for an adult in some cases. And
unless you're like me, where sleep is like my happy
you're
place.
Like hoping to get to sleep at any point of the day. And the idea of sleep as a kind of a cusp skill for children, in terms of how do I respond to this existential distress that I now have to face. It is one of the first limits we put on our children. And it is something that an adult must do. You know, children are born able to do a lot of things as reflex, but going to sleep becomes a skill that, if parents are not helping children learn when and how to go to sleep, a child will not just sort of natural. I mean, they'll eventually like pass out, but they won't learn good sleep skills. And I had not thought of sleep as that. I knew it was important, but I didn't think of it as sort of like the first big distress a child is learning to manage kind of on their own.
I really, the way in which he lays this out, I think he does a really good job of it in saying that when your child goes to sleep on their own in their room, they are going on a journey by themselves. And this is the longest point of their day that they are away from you, their parent, and they're generally by themselves. And at least, you know, in our country and in our culture, like, this is what the expectation is that a child's falling asleep in their own room, and the parent is often not present during that time. And so it really is like they're going on a journey alone, and you're trying to set them up for success so that they can take that journey by themselves and then come back to you in the morning, and everyone is refreshed and ready to do the next day. And they're basically learning this skill as a skill of independence, that they're able to fall asleep and make it through the night and then come see you again in the morning, which is thought to be the reinforcer, as well as the obvious biological reinforcers to the whole thing. So I was like, oh, that's like, he just did such a nice job, I thought, of like saying it in this way. And it felt really like caring and poignant, the way he was describing like sending your child on this journey and helping them learn how to navigate the journey. So I just really liked that as a metaphor.
Yeah.
Well, and I think it's also a good starting point of thinking, and I've never really seen this done in like the research literature, of like sleep as we present it being like contingent motivating or conditioned motivating operations around it. Like
Yeah.
we really, when we give sleep advice, it's like, it's important that the bed be used for only, you know, a handful of activities. Like we definitely talk about it that way, but like the bed should signal like comfort, relief, distress, like not stress, like a de-stressing, and like just going to sleep. It shouldn't be the place where we, you know, go and spend hours on our screen, because like we need in our society for sleep to be regular and predictable and healthy.
Yeah.
I think one last thing I do want to say about this chapter is, and I think it increases the audience for this book, is thinking about sleep and helping your child sleep as kind of the first time you as a parent or caregiver are being asked to use many of the key principles that you will need to keep in mind through every interaction with your child. This is the first time you are teaching them to follow instructions. This is the first time you are using reinforcement for appropriate behavior. You may be using punishment for inappropriate behavior. You may be using negative reinforcement. You may have to be thinking about a skill that your child is learning rather than just why is my child being a pain and responding reactively. And again, I never thought about teaching my child to go to sleep as this is the first time I'm actually parenting my child. I sort of thought about, I'm keeping them alive, right? But like some of the keeping them alive is important at, those early ages. But so much of what goes into how do you teach your child to go to sleep is going to set the table for how am I going to parent every other thing that drives me nuts that I'm hoping my child learns for the rest of their lives, or at the very least the rest of your life as a parent. And it's so very true how much that relationship, I think about how stressful it was, like the first time, when we first had kids, how hard it was to deal with sleep because no one is in a good mood because you also as an adult need sleep. So for a child to respond poorly to going to sleep, you're not in your best position. It's not like, oh, they sprained their ankle or something, and you're wide awake and you can handle it and you sort of know what to do. And, you call the doctor or whatever. It's, I'm exhausted. I want you to go to sleep because I need to go to sleep. I'm not ready to come up with a bunch of solutions. So really, this would be a book I would actually suggest, hey, are you having kids? You might want to read this book, even if you think, oh, of course, my child's going to go to sleep and be great at sleeping. It might be a good idea to check this out just to be on the safe side.
Unsolicited parenting advice.
Well, they downloaded this episode. They've solicited the parenting advice.
I'm just imagining you're like giving it as a gift.
Oh, my podcast?
No,
I give so many people my podcast for holidays, and
podcast is always free.
Gift that keeps on giving.
Yeah, for sure.
All right,
it's just what you give to like just couples as a wedding gift to be like, oh, eventually you're gonna have kids. So here you go. You seem like the kid type. Get this down now.
Yeah, listen, I'm gonna give you the code to get into the Patreon version of this episode where we give you all the advice.
Thank me later.
All right, let's move on to chapter 3: How children learn and why it matters for sleep. Which is not a chapter we need to spend a lot of time on.
In 30 seconds.
Go for it, Diana. Why would we talk about the chapter for 30 seconds?
Because we, as a field, already know a good bit about how learning occurs and the science of learning. And this is true for everybody, children, not children. So we can teach kids how to engage in this behavior, which sleep is behavior, right? So learning how to fall asleep, learning how to stay asleep, those are behaviors that can be taught via reinforcement practices that we already know a good bit about. So taking what we already know about the principles of behavior analysis and learning, we can apply those to this particular situation, use our common sense so that we're applying them in compassionate ways and thereby make changes to the behavior that we might be looking to make changes to.
Okay.
Is
that 30 seconds? I didn't look at the timer.
The one part I like about this one too is that he really focuses that sometimes negative is better than, for kids, negative is better than nothing. I really liked that little sentence because I think for parents that's really, like, you're like, if I'm yelling at them, that's worse. But it might not be. It's like that I'm not angry at you, I'm just disappointed, right? You think the angry is going to be more, but just that disappointed tone when your mom or dad says that to you, it's like the worst. So I love that because I'm like, I wouldn't have thought of it that way, that me not, what he says, be like a robot parent. Me being a robot parent is worse than me like arguing and trying to negotiate bedtime. I love that.
Right, because... Oh, go ahead, Alan.
I was going to say, I think it reflects his like contextualist view that like if we think about it, it's more optically, it feels more challenging optically to have a parent be like, just go to sleep. And the child goes to sleep as opposed to, oh, you're not going to go to sleep? Okay, just do whatever. And then not consequate, not develop a motivation for sleep. But if we think about the context of sleep problems, the child goes to sleep in the first one and does not go to sleep in the second one.
Right, yeah.
So in the like context of sleep, the first one, while having other problems, at least gets the child to go to sleep.
Well, and, especially young kids are truly just magnetically drawn to want to be around their parents in whatever capacity. So the difference between going to your dark, quiet,
boring.
Boring. There was some word I wanted, I didn't find. Room and laying there in the dark and be expected to close your eyes and go to sleep versus coming out and interacting with your parents in any way, even if it is less than ideal because your parents starting to get annoyed with you, right? Like that's still preferable over just being alone in your room. And so you're already kind of fighting an uphill battle as a parent if you are experiencing these types of coming out of your room type of problems, right? So it's hard then to not give the type of feedback that your child might be looking for.
Well, and I would just say I like this chapter additionally because if I have a parent, I would refer to it as a way to explain behavior principles to a new parent in a context that may be very stressful to them, and to really get them to understand, like, your child, I know for a fact that your child would rather be with you when you're in a bad mood than go to sleep.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. Well put. And I guess this is a good point. This is a good time to maybe bring this point in too, which is this is a book for parents who are seeking out assistance, right? Yeah. So they're saying like something's wrong here with the whole sleep system that I have going in my house, and it's not working for me and my family and my child. It's not a book where Pat Friman is coming in and saying, this is how it's got to be, right? You have to put your child to bed in this way. I am saying that they have to fall asleep in their own room, etc., right? Lots and lots of families co-sleep, particularly around the world. We're kind of the outliers in that we have this expectation of solo sleep. So he's not attempting to lay that on a family. He's just saying like, hey, if you are looking for assistance, this is the assistance and the advice that I'm providing to you once you've come to me. But if there's not a problem, we don't need to fix the problem. Just want to make sure I got that in.
Yeah, and, across the chapters, he gives the other options, right? He's like, you can do all of these things with varying effectiveness. And here are other things, and I'm not telling you what to do, but here are the things that you could do.
Yeah.
The only thing he says is in the baby chapter, he's like, don't roll on your infant and kill it.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So
fair point, right?
So this chapter sort of ends discussing the idea of crying, baby crying, because it's going to come up.
It ends in tears.
Again, if you are reading this, you're a new parent. Maybe I gave it to you as a baby gift, and your child is 0 to 6 months old, and you're saying they wake up a lot crying. You know what? Totally fine. Don't worry about it. That's how babies communicate that they have a need. Respond to them. Do whatever you need to do to keep them going, feed them, change them, whatever it is. It's really only after 6 months that you should be thinking about crying as something you sort of differentially respond to. And Dr. Friman makes it very clear that he doesn't blame parents for not knowing when to do this, how to do this, because for the last 6 months of your life, and potentially if you are first-time parents, for the first time for the last 6 months, you've responded to every single cry, and everyone has told you, yes, that is the best thing to do. What an amazing parent you are. And then all of a sudden, 6 months hits, and it's sort of like, well, you need to let them cry it out, or, well, you need to do something different. Well, you don't have to respond to every single cry. So it is understandable as to why parents might not just sort of hit the switch of, and now I'm great at helping my child with sleep problems just because 6 months have passed, because their behavior and their response to crying has been reinforced for 6 months by everybody. So again, before 6 months, don't worry about it. Just respond, help your baby. After 6 months is when you would start thinking about routines and what should I be doing with my child at sleep time. Which leads us into chapter 4, the pre-bedtime ritual.
Yes. Correct, Rob. So I first heard about this term sleep hygiene from Dr. Greg Hanley because he's also done a good amount of sleep research. And I was like, what a weird term, sleep hygiene. I don't know if I like that term very much. but it's like totally since then come to really grow on me in that I like the idea of it. I like the way that you use the term, and it no longer sounds strange to me, but maybe it's just because I've said it so many times. But the idea of sleep hygiene is that you have good practices in place such that you or your child, because it can be applicable to anyone, can fall asleep under a certain set of conditions with a reasonable routine in place prior to going to bed, and have that same set of conditions be present upon any one of the many wakings up that occur during a regular night's sleep. So you might not realize it, but you or your child are going to wake up multiple times during the night, like 8 to 10 times. And usually during that time period, you just roll over and go back to sleep and you don't remember it at all. But if there's something that is amiss or different or noticeable in the environment when you have one of those mini awakenings, then it can cause you to come more fully awakened during that period of time. And that can make it a lot harder to go back to sleep, particularly if it's towards the morning hours too. So there are things that one can do during that bedtime routine portion of the evening that can really set a child up for success, such that when they wake up during the night, they won't encounter one of those like more fully awakening periods. And one thing that is really, really critical during this whole thing is that whatever is present when the child is falling asleep are the same things that should be present when they potentially wake up during the night. So any differences between those two are what are going to set off alarm bells when they kind of start to wake up during the night. And so common culprits of poor sleep hygiene that can be established during the bedtime period are having the lullaby CD on during the go to bed period, having the television on, having the lights on in the room, or having the parent in like present / in the bed / patting the back of the child, because then, you know, the child falls asleep. They're like, oh, thank goodness. You leave the room. And then when they inevitably wake up at least a little bit during the night, you're no longer present, or the light's off and it's super dark, or the noise machine stopped, or whatever it might be. And that's when you're going to get a more fully awakened child during the night. So that's one really critical piece, is whatever's present when they fall asleep is what should be present when they wake up. And you can establish this going to bed ritual or routine as part of a set series of things that happen every single night in the same order. That's not too long and not too short, right? That's something that's sustainable by you, the parent. And so it could be that you do it in the same order every night, like pajamas, teeth, story, bed, perhaps. And try to avoid it from becoming like too long and drawn out. I'm looking to see if I forgot anything in this list that says do's and don'ts of the bedtime routine.
Yeah, one of them was don't be overzealous.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
Don't engage in tickle fights right before bed, which is our number one.
He said, how close can baby go to the ceiling?
Yeah. that is, I think, in our house, the number one killer of bedtime is those tickle fights, because we have a bedtime the bedtime rituals that is the exact same since infancy. Like, we have not varied it at all, except now she gets 5 minutes to read in her bed before lights out, because now she can read. But before that, it's the exact same. And there is a cuddle component to get all the loves in so that you can love before you go to bed, like Dr. Friman said. And sometimes that turns into an all-out wrestling / tickle fest, which then makes it a little more difficult with the transition. So when I read that, I was like, I hear you, Patty Friman. I hear you.
Nice. Right, because the whole thing should be a slowing down routine to kind of get you ready to go to sleep. So nothing too exciting.
And I'm exciting, I guess. It's when I'm most exciting, I guess, right before bed.
Well, and this is, I'll just hop in here because I've found it interesting that some eager parents looking to solve the technology problem that we were talking about of like electronic media have actually been discussing in the sort of parent sphere, exposing children to like shows like Arthur and Mr. Rogers, and like slow.
Oh, Alan, you cut out 1 second. Can you just go back? Eager parents have been discussing. We lost a little bit. Uh-oh. Are you still there?
He's having a rough connection today.
I'll text him.
Okay.
I really wanted to
I gotta go get this food at 7. It's ready at 7.
Well, we're doing good. We're at an hour and 10. We only have 30 minutes. You're back,
I should say
Alan.
in my back.
You're back, Alan. There you are.
We seem frozen.
Yeah, you're good. Okay. No, you're good. Uh-oh. It's going to get internet.
Oh, no.
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 That is offline. I'm going to pause for a second. There you're back. Okay.
All right. Sorry. I was just saying that there's been some interesting things in the parent sphere about the wind down routine, about using slower media, like stuff from the 90s, like Mr. Rogers or Arthur or things like that, because as like it seems to be helping their children go to sleep better than, you know, and not just like just before bed, but just throughout the day, of like promoting more restfulness. So I thought that was just one of those areas where it's this book made me think of it'd be interesting to have some research about this, or some new parenting thoughts on this, because I think there's a lot of credence to that certain media, certain routines, certain stimuli, levels of stimulation might be better for promoting restfulness than others.
Interesting.
Yeah. Sort of like electronic methadone. You don't just cut your kid off from screens cold turkey.
Yeah. Melatonin?
Melatonin.
No, methadone.
Methadone.
You actually meant methadone.
No, I meant methadone.
Oh, okay. I thought too. Yeah. I was like,
Going. Yeah, we're not on the heroin of Cocomelon. We're on the methadone of Arthur.
Nice. What's Blippy in this analogy?
Oh, Blippy can go to hell.
Blippi's too many Blippies. I don't love that Blippi's multiple Blippies and there's multiple Mikas. You just need to.
I've never even seen this
sucks.
show.
I don't want to stop. I don't want to talk about it. I'm so angry now. I'll never get to sleep.
It's the crystal meth, and we'll move on from there.
Yeah.
Got it. Thank you.
All right. So we have our routine. Our routine's not too long, not too short. It's consistent. We have all the stimuli that we want our child to have near them, so that when they invariably will wake up at night, the same things that were around them when they went to sleep are there when they wake up, so they can go back to sleep, because that is how human brain cycles work when it comes to sleep.
Yep. And you can have the parent and the blanket there, right? But then when they fall asleep, the blanket needs to be like the controlling factor, basically. Or if your child, if they're little and they use like a passy or a binky or whatever, we used to put them like in a halo around his head, so that no matter where he reached during the night, he could find one and put it back in, because it always falls out. So that stuff's okay. They can have things.
Yeah.
That's the most behavior analyst parent thing I've ever heard.
When we get to the older kids, Alan, I will describe in as much detail as you'd like our like various fading sleep procedures that we used for the children.
Well, we better get on it then.
We better get on it. All right, let's move on. Chapter 5, Solving Sleep Problems with Infants. And I appreciated that every one of these chapters has a cute little quote that goes under the chapter. This one is, "I'm crying my way back to you." Just to kind of let you know.
I've done that for both of you, crying so that you'll come and get me in the middle of the night at my own house, bring me back to your house. Just kidding.
And Taylor Swift's next single after Travis Kelce, "I'm Crying My Way Back to You."
Right.
That's got to go in the updated edition.
Did they break up? Oh, what a cliffhanger.
No,
Alan,
they
did
didn't break up. No, I I'm just making a joke
You're
about
anticipating.
for an artist who's known for breakup music.
Okay.
It felt like the most appropriate reference to take this quote out of context. Ha ha ha, aren't jokes funnier when you explain?
They're the best when they're explained to you. But, now we know, and people who listen to this a year from now will just shake their heads at us.
No, I think Swifties might come for us. Cut that.
Uh-oh. All right, so you've got your 6-month-olds, right? Because before then, your child's going to cry. At about 2 weeks, they cry for about 2 hours a day. Then they cry for about 3 hours a day. Then it's about an hour a day at about 2 months. Parents, having children, it's great. It's a lot of fun. They cry a lot.
It feels like way more than that, just so they know.
Because, well, as Dr. Friman will mention, and then after 6 months, you might say, okay, now it is appropriate to do sleep training. And he quotes, talking about baby crying. True, this is a quote, true, it is just a cry, but it is not just any cry. It is the perfect cry. It has been crafted through hours of practice over the course of the child's young life. The child has learned something very powerful. This is what it takes. This is the kind of cry that will bring my parents. This is what I need to do if I want them to come. The child knows he or she has hit upon exactly the right tone, intensity, and quality of crying that parents cannot ignore. Then this will be the kind of crying that is done in the middle of the night. So for those of you who have had infants, you know what that cry was. Jumping ahead a little bit, we used the Ferber method. And by we, I mean I. I used the Ferber method for at least 2 of our children in going to sleep, in which I sort of shaped up how long before I would respond to their sleeping, and then I would put it on extinction after that. And I remember just being awake for those initial points where it's like a minute, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, right? These short chunks. And I remember reading Hellboy comic books in bed using a screen, which is not good for my sleep. And I don't think I can read that comic series without thinking about my children crying to this day. It's a surprise I still read the damn things, because all I can think about when I read that comic series is, oh yeah, my kids were crying. That just awful. I have to ignore this cry. If you choose to use the Ferber method, which is one of the things Pat Friman describes. If you have not experienced it, it is very awful. If you have experienced, you know exactly what we're talking about here.
It's very awful for you as a parent to endure.
Yes, it is. It is not awful. For anyone else, it is probably just any other cry. It's like kind of annoying, but not a big deal. But if you are a parent, it is the middle of the night, your child is crying, and you are making the conscious decision to respond or not respond to your child, who is, as much as they may not be in a life-threatening state, is in distress. And you may be choosing to say, I'm ignoring your distress for the longer, later reinforcer of, I don't know, self-aggrandizement about how great a parent you are, I guess.
No, and you're teaching them to fall back asleep on their own.
Yes.
Is what you're doing. And it doesn't hurt them. They're fine. It does not hurt
they're
them.
fine. But it's off. It's very hard to do.
It is really hard to do.
Luckily, Diana's sleep training was so good, she slept through a lot of that. She doesn't remember it. I remember it.
It's
well, you
sort
chose
of
to do it.
It's like it's a parent's first experience with like a change in reinforcement schedule for your parenting skills, for your giving your child love and attention for crying. It's like I'm not going to be doing this anymore, and I feel like a horrible human being.
You know, one thing that helped me is Rob
did it.
Rob did it. No, that I remember reading. I was like, the reinforcer here is being picked up, right? And of course, you check all the things, right? Are they hungry? Are they wet? Are they sick? Are they stuck?
Dr. Friman called that the putter.
Yeah. So you check all those things. You know that everything is fine. You've addressed any potential issues. And then after that, I remember they say like, well, the reinforcer is being picked up, right? That's what they really want. But so you can come by, you can do the drive-by, right? And you can like give them a pat on the back, and you can make sure that they know that they're safe and you're nearby and all of those things. But you're just not doing that ultimate like biggest reinforcer of picking them up.
Yeah. So when it comes to infants, you have 4 options that Dr. Friman lays out. 2 of them he endorses. 2 of them he is mentioning. which is code for he does not endorse them. However, he is not saying don't. You can't do these. However, they're not the two he would choose. And the first is extinction. Put crying on extinction at that age. Do the putter like Diana was describing. Go in, make sure they are okay, because especially with young children, you want to make sure they aren't, stuck or they forgot something, something fell on them, they're hurt, right? And if so, you respond to them as you would at any time. Otherwise, you're sort of checking in. He brings up the same reasons that most of us probably don't say, extinction, that's the solution for you, families, and that it is very, very hard to consistently implement an extinction procedure alone.
And he calls it cold turkey. He doesn't call it extinction.
He calls it cold. Yeah, it's cold turkey, but it's an extinction procedure. And he does go over the reasons, we would not necessarily recommend extinction right off the bat, in that it is very hard for parents, if the family is, if there are two parents involved or multiple parents involved, to have everyone consistently agree, I am going to put this very aversive cry on extinction. Which leads to its own sets of problems with your relationship, because all it takes is one parent to say, I can't take it anymore, to to get in the way of that being an effective treatment. So in the sense that
it also doesn't mention that if your kid is sick, then you start all over the beginning.
Yes.
Yeah.
So it's easy in that you do nothing, but it is not easy for parents who have tried to ignore their crying child to do. So that's one. You can do the putter, but you can't pick them up. You can't engage with any sort of meaningful interaction. You can do the Ferber method, which is kind of a graduated extinction in that you ignore for specific lengths of time that you shape over days. This is what I did for 2 of 3 of our children. The other one, we did more of a stimulus fading. And it takes longer to do this. However, it is a little less intense in terms of the amount of crying before you respond. I still remember it distinctly. I remember it. We've changed the how our bedroom is set up since then. I still remember exactly how our bedroom was set up. Like it's one of those flashbulb memories, like the Kennedy assassination or the Challenger explosion. I know exactly where I was when I was doing the Ferber method for at least our youngest child.
I don't think you're endorsing it very well.
I did.
I mean, it worked.
And it worked. Mine worked in, 3 days? But man, those 3 days were rough. And I'm glad I did the Ferber method and not just the let it cry it out method like the whole time, because that was really difficult.
I feel like that is close to impossible.
The key to remember is, regardless of any method, if you are going in, minimal interactions, you're not speaking, especially the Ferber method, you're not speaking to the child, you're sort of, you're not picking them up, you're just sort of calming them, maybe you're patting them on the back, and you're just getting them, helping them get back to sleep. And then you're leaving, and then you're extending the period of time after that. I think I did like 2 successful check-ins, and then I increased it by about 5 minutes, and I did this until it was at, about an hour or so, at which point
they usually fall asleep before that.
They fell asleep before that.
It's not usually them crying for an hour.
So again, both of these are effective. You will not hurt your child doing this. They will not remember you did this. I'm going to ask, after we're done recording, I think I'll go ask all my kids, do you remember how you learned to go to sleep? You will remember it.
They're very well attached.
But you will remember
very much.
And no one will blame you for being scared of doing either of these methods or of thinking of them as being hard or tough to do, because they are, in at least psychologically. The other 2 suggestions, because again, these will come up to some extent in some variation through all the rest of the chapters. You could do co-sleeping, which, like Diana mentioned, is not necessarily a practice done as much in sort of like Western parts of the world. There's nothing inappropriate about it. Really, infancy is the only time that you would be worried about it, in that there is a potential that you could roll over and crush your child. However, that typically would only happen if you are impaired in some way, rather, through drinking or drugs. So if you are choosing to co-sleep...
Oh, you never know.
I mean, there are a lot of other reasons.
No. Yeah,
but certainly
you never know.
If co-sleeping is the plan that your family is choosing, do not go to bed intoxicated or in any way impaired, because it increases the chance that you could harm your child.
There are many risk factors here. It does not have to involve drugs or alcohol.
Right. Like Diana. Diana could easily roll over on her child in the middle of the night and not know, because she's like...
I'm going from the book. I don't have the stats. More likely is what is mentioned.
Okay. Yeah, more likely, but there are several risk factors involved here.
Yes.
They do make like co-sleepers where they like attach to the bed or are very close next to the bed that are safer.
Or there's ones that are in the bed too.
Oh, yeah.
Remember those?
It also means that this is how your child is going to wake up and go back to sleep. which means that any privacy that you were looking for as, with your partner is probably not going to be a component of the sleep routine until you decide to change from co-sleeping. And for some families, I think they've described like, oh, we just put them in their own bed when they got to a certain age and they went to bed and it was great. Other parents have said they keep coming back into my bed and it took years and years and years before they stopped doing it.
I would say the latter has been my experience in our field of intervention, and for probably various reasons, that like the risk of co-sleeping is that it's a routine, and deviation from familiar routines is a major stressor for like children with developmental disabilities and differences. So it's a choice to be made and can be ethical, but fixing it is not necessary, or changing that is not an easy fix. Yeah. And can take a long time. So consider that carefully, thinking about the years of the changes that you will have especially in a partnership.
Yeah, it's so powerful. And the routine is established so easily and so quickly that it can be hard to then come back from.
Yeah.
And if you're okay with it, then that's fine. If you didn't want any more kids.
And then finally, medication, which is not endorsed by Dr. Friman, could be recommended by physicians. However, there are very specific situations in which I think medication would or would not be appropriate. There are very many more, I would say, at least from reading this book and any research I've done, in which medication would be appropriate. However, it is something that you would have to discuss with your medical professional. And if you have not done many of the steps that have laid out in this book, I would question whether or not medication is the appropriate reason if there is no medical diagnosis that lends itself to a need for medication.
And this is also an area where it'd be interesting to see like an update from Dr. Friman, because I feel now like melatonin and sleep supplements are such a much larger part of the landscape than they were with like children's sleep gummies and everything being a thing that perhaps they weren't. I don't remember them existing 20 years ago.
No.
Certainly not to the degree of their availability.
Yeah.
Now, I wasn't even thinking about that, honestly. I was thinking about like off-label Benadryl use or whatever when he wrote that.
Yeah,
which he's not recommending.
Yeah, but I think that would definitely fall within the purview, because melatonin does have side effects, does have rebound effects, does have dependency issues.
Yeah.
It's a hormone. So
I guess the good thing about the next few chapters is there's nothing really new, right? As you get
they build on each other.
Yes.
Elementary, middle school, and high school. It's just that now it's less about the crying, because now you're not worried about your children crying as much, because you've been used to it.
They can come out.
Right? But now it's more about the sophistication of, right? So it just changes. It's not crying now. Now it's more, even at the preschool level. Now it's more the behaviors are more complex, right? And they're more higher order behaviors than just crying.
Yeah. So chapter 6 is solving sleep problems with toddlers. I'm crying and crawling my way back to you. So like you mentioned, Jackie, now your child's cry is still somewhat potent. However, it is more their ability to get out of bed that is suddenly a novelty. And this is really where you as a parent need to focus on how are you developing your kind of, instructional control over your child's behavior. How do you give kind, non-aversive instructions that are clear and specific? How have you built up a routine, which hopefully you've been building since they were 6 months old, to sort of help promote appropriate sleep behaviors? How are you focusing on appropriate interactions so that they see the farewell, my love kind of good night routine rather than you're yelling at them right before they go to sleep? So there are a lot of strategies that can work. The new one is going to be, but what if they get out of bed? Because they couldn't do that as an infant. But what if they get out of bed? And the challenge here, again, is catching the child as soon as you can, because once they're out of bed, many of the signals that you're counting on to have them go to sleep are no longer in play. So certainly, Dr. Friman suggests you could put some sort of early warning system on the bedroom door so that the second they leave bed. And then you're able to use, and I think you mentioned this already, Jackie, the robotic return where you just make sure that bringing them back to bed is differentiated from how you typically go to bed. So you're not talking to them, you're walking stiffly back to the room, maybe you leave the door open a crack. However, if they continue to come out of the room, you differentiate their behavior through the door will stay open a crack versus I'm closing the door all the way because you continue getting out of your bed. And this can work very effectively. We did this with our own children. There was one comment here that the idea of if you have a child who's trying to get out of their room, the recommendation is holding the door because it is important, quote, it is important to stand, for lack of a better word, and win. If your child wins, he or she has learned how to defeat you at your own game and probably will be emboldened in his or her campaign against bedtime. And this is another recommendation where I sort of, and I've kind of gone back and forth with this, is that I see how this is important. I also feel it is kind of anathema to a lot of improvements that we have really been pushing in the field of behavior change. So
I might feel differently about this now.
Yeah.
I feel like this kind of goes against a lot of the earlier parts in the book where he's talking about like we have to establish this trust between the parent and the child and that we're there to help them, like send them on this journey. We've definitely encountered this issue personally with when our kids were toddlers. And I think what we finally landed on as the solution was we would sit out. We had a beanbag just for this purpose. We would sit outside the room. And when they came to the door, we would get up and we would take them back and tuck them back in, but not do a lot of interaction. And then we would plop ourselves right back down in the hall. So there wasn't a lot of time for them to be the escape artist and get out and come into the living room, see what you're watching on TV and maybe get an extra snack and have some type of negotiation about things. Like none of that was happening. And then we, slowly faded ourselves back away down the hall, or we fell asleep
with our
in the
oldest
beanbag.
Yeah, with our oldest, we did it. It was a very, very explicit shaping procedure. And I distinctly remembered the first time I read about distance learning, which, we all learned about in 2020, distance learning. But the first time I read about distance learning was in the process of doing that shaping procedure for our oldest child. That's how salient a memory it is for me, because it wasn't fun. But it was very effective, and it did not require us yelling at him or shoving him in bed. It allowed us to sort of be there for him and then just slowly fading our presence in his room. And he is asleep on the couch outside our recording room right now. So clearly we did a great job. He's still asleep.
He still sleeps, guys. Yeah. And then I think I may have skipped ahead.
You did.
Oh, no. I just want to make sure we talk about the bedtime pass.
That's later.
That's later. That's older. Oh, no, that's a little later.
Yeah.
You can do that with her.
School to middle school is bedtime pass.
Yeah.
We're not quite there yet.
I just want to also, I think that while that he may have some retooling of those sections, I do think the point, by all means, do not do this, where he says, do not debate, argue, discuss, or reason, or make threats or promises to a child who has left his or her bedroom at night. Just generally not in the middle of a challenging behavior is not the time to have that discussion.
Right.
Yeah. Some other tips.
Hammer that home hard enough. I'm sorry. I was like, that is one of the hardest things in helping families change their family culture of just like it. Don't teach the lesson in the middle of the challenge. And it seems like with sleep, it would be different, but I think it's great advice.
Some tips that if you haven't mastered already, you're going to want to master at this point in your child's development is direct commands. Tell your child with eye contact and as few words as you can, a clear statement as to what they should do. Not just it's time to get ready for bed, which is vague. It is time to pick up your toys. It is time to go put your pajamas on and then get into the routine that you've been developing since they were 6 months old of getting ready for bed. Again, some steps here. If the child is refusing to follow directions, this, like you were saying, Alan, this isn't the time to then I'm going to teach you a lesson about how important it is to follow instructions. It just, hey, guess what? This didn't get cleaned up. It's time for bed. We're going to focus on going to bed. And then tomorrow, when it's time to do something fun, all the toys you never cleaned up. This is when we're going to clean them up now. So don't like put them in timeout. Don't like do your normal typical day procedures. You want to get them to bed. And you could use physical guidance if it's gentle but firm. But again, it's going to be very much that if you've built the relationship and you are very, very clear of it is time for bed and here we go, we're going to bed together. It's probably the right amount of prompting. If you are physically like yanking them up or picking your child up, that might be a little beyond what you're hoping to accomplish in this routine. It's a little easier to ignore crying at this age because it is more. It is not quite the same cry. And actually, while you could use it at the elementary levels, the bedtime pass, if you are finding this is still not successful, there are suggestions of the sleep fairy and the bedtime pass. And we actually did an episode on sleep where we talked about the bedtime pass. But basically, it just comes down to, here is a card. I'm going to give this to you. Once in bed, you may use this bedtime pass to exchange it for a simple request after lights go out, like get a drink or get an extra hug or have me come in and look at your room or look at the clothes you have for the next day, and then keep it. And it was like a 2-page article, and it was very effective. So again, you can use that. Is it because it works because the child has control over the environment in a way they didn't? Is it because there's some positive feeling that's paired with being in the dark and having the pass nearby? It's a substitute for the parent. Dr. Friman doesn't know, but it was effective in a research study. And then the sleep fairy is pretty much just, the sleep fairy will come. It's like a book. It's like a social story. And then they get a prize for sleeping in bed. So again, it's just sort of reinforcement. So two things you could use. Narrative. Yeah, social narrative. What's the difference between a social narrative and a social story?
One's trademarked, one's not.
I use the sleep fairy, but instead I used a pacifier fairy. In the middle of the night, I put the pacifiers out, and then instead of the pacifiers, there was toys.
Yeah, I think we have a picture of our oldest son putting his pacifier in the pacifier box for the pacifier fairy to take away.
Yeah, isn't that funny?
All of our anecdotes are only about our first son because I don't really remember the first year of life of my other two sons because you're just so tired.
They're still here. They're fine.
Like, so it all happened, and they all like learned how to sleep, and they all eventually learned how to sleep in their own beds, and then they gave up their passies, and they're all big boys now. So it all happens.
You too can do this. All right. So chapter 8, we move on to elementary school age children. I'll go to bed in a minute. A really, really long minute.
I'm in this hot right now.
You live in this now?
I'm living this right now. And when I read that, I was like, oh my gosh, that is totally me right now. Hot minute. She's like, just a second. I'm just going to magically now order all my books by color on the bookshelf before I go to bed. So I felt that. Immensely.
Yeah. There's an increase in sort of the complexity of verbal behavior your child can engage with at this stage. And I think as adults, we are much more likely to respond to that complexity, no matter what time of day it is, than we are to just say to ourselves, wait a minute, this is the same crap I was dealing with in the last chapter of the book. I can probably do a lot of the same things, which is true. You also have a lot more kind of emotional responding from the child. They're going to be mad at you. They're going to say things that hurt your feelings that they would not have done as toddlers because they did not have the language to do so. They're going to tell you you're unfair, you're mean. And again, another quote, children are likely to be upset and feel that the parent is being unfair. My recommendation to you is to get used to it. It is likely to get worse before it gets better. Unfortunately, part of being a parent involves enforcing rules, the merit of which will not be clear to children until they become parents. So there is something to be said for having a social circle in which you have other parents that can tell you, no, as long as you are not yelling at your child or punishing them for no reason, you are doing okay. They're going to say things that make you feel like you are doing a bad job. But you must stand your ground, do it lovingly. But whatever routine you've been building for all these years, you still need to be consistent. One thing that he brings up, and I bet this section would also be expanded in a new edition, is sometimes your child is not failing to go to sleep at this age because of anything they are doing. It is because you have overscheduled them. and they can't actually get to, when they say, I can't get to bed on time, I have too much to do, they are literally speaking about their schedule and that there are too many things to do. They're getting home too late. They have too many other things that they haven't gotten done because they were out doing activities all day. Now they have to get them done, and they're stressed out about how they can't get everything done. So if your child is saying, I can't do all these things, I can't go to bed, I have so much to do, that is verbal behavior you could respond to by thinking, is this something that is true? And then looking at the schedule and saying, am I giving my child enough time to complete things that they want to do, have to do, and then can get to bed on time without being constantly stressed?
Which I will say may also involve you not letting them do something they want to do and teaching them priorities of, I know you want to be in all these clubs and do this, but you have to have a limit because you cannot do all that for the rest of your life.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Which again is very challenging.
Yeah.
Even for adults.
Mm-hmm.
I do like that he says, hey, it doesn't matter if they're like playing after bedtime, if you said goodnight to them and all of the salient features are, if they're just playing in your room, in their bedroom and quietly, just let it happen. It's okay.
They'll pass out eventually.
Right? Yeah. I appreciated that because I was like, yeah, thanks. Thanks, Pat Friman.
It's like me trying to read in bed of like, I don't know, is it good for me to read in bed? Doesn't matter. I'm asleep in 5 minutes after starting a book. So who cares?
True.
All right. So I think
I've also heard the advice of, if your child is just not asleep yet, like maybe you have misjudged when the bedtime should be, because it does change over time, right? So let them come out and stay up an extra 30 minutes because you really want the motivation to go to sleep to be high when you put them to bed. So perhaps they're actually not tired yet, and let them stay up a little bit and then restart the bedroom routine when they are perhaps more ready to fall asleep. And then from there, you can sort of observe and readjust and see if maybe you do need to push bedtime back.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that was really the only, when you talk about middle school years and beyond, that was really one of the salient points, is that think about the bedtime, right? And you're going to want to set a later bedtime. Like 16-year-olds shouldn't be going to bed at 7:30, right? Every day.
Yeah.
Good luck trying to enforce that one.
Right. Yeah.
Well, and just to expand, just to go back to the playing note, like that has been an issue I have had with a client who was beyond toddlerdom, not quite in preschool age, where they're like, we can hear him waking up in the middle of the night. We don't want to get new sleep problems. I'm like, is he leaving the room? No. Is he making a bunch of noise or getting toys out? No, he's just playing with the toys that are in his bed. Do you want him to have those toys? Yeah, we think they covered him. Don't change anything. Come back in 2 weeks.
Yeah, great.
Come back in 2 weeks, and if it's a problem, it's a problem.
Right.
Then we'll deal with it.
Yeah. And one thing you kind of already mentioned, Jackie, when we get to chapter 9 on middle school and beyond,
which is where
I'm not tired yet, and you're not the boss of me. Yeah, but when we look at that chapter, I would love to see more specifically written about how to use bedtime routine as a reinforcer, because Dr. Friman kind of lays it out as like, well, think about the bare minimum as the normal bedtime, and then extra work as they can sort of like go up chunks of bedtime, like 15 or 30 minute chunks later. And since you know how much sleep they should get and you know when they have been going to sleep, you can sort of play around with that Ferber chart to sort of figure out like what would be an appropriate 30 minutes so that they're getting enough sleep, biologically.
Right.
Which I love to see a little bit more detail, because I've really, our son mostly seems to get enough sleep. He goes to school and he's functioning, right? I know a lot of schools, like our school district this year, did later start times because a lot of research was pointing to how American high schools start too early. So biologically, children are unable to get enough sleep. But it still does feel like it's really hard to feel like I have control over the sleep schedule the same way I did at toddlerhood and elementary. And, again, we got 3 kids, so I'll try it again for 2 and 3 as they get to be teenagers, see if I can do it better. But I would have loved to see sort of like, what do you do when this happens? Because I think this is where a lot of parents struggle. And to some extent, a lot of parents feel like, well, as long as they're getting to school on time and they're doing okay, I think I'm just going to leave it. But that's a privilege, that your child is sort of just doing okay with the amount of sleep they get. That is not going to be every families experience, and for families who are struggling with that at the teenage years, it is very hard to tell them, get your kid up a little earlier, or have them go to bed a little earlier, have them go to bed a little later. It is like, you might as well have told them, knock your kid out with like a blackjack. They stare at you like, this is the stupidest thing anyone's ever told me. And I can't blame them. It kind of is. It's a challenge.
Well, and so this is, again, I think where, I don't know that Dr. Friman himself would do this, but where for adolescents and teenagers and things like that, some like act-based approaches of like, we've agreed that going to bed is important. How can I help you? Like taking a more supportive, I want you to recognize why this is important, and let's come up with a solution together.
I'd love to see more in that area, Alan, because again, not everyone's a lot of people are gonna get through the teenage stages knowing their child's not getting as much sleep as they needed, because I know I didn't get as much sleep as I needed as a teenager, but I'm still here doing a podcast about sleep, so it all worked out okay.
But we also have horrible, crippling anxiety and other mental health needs because of our lack of sleep in our formative years, Rob. Come on.
Alan, there are a lot of reasons I have crippling anxiety. I don't think we're going to put them all at the altar of sleep. There's a lot of things could have happened, right?
I slept great. I always needed so much sleep, and I always got so much sleep. I think I was like that 14-year-old that went to bed at like 7:45. But it was like on my own volition. I'm like, well, feeling a tiny bit tired. Got to go to bed.
So some parents might be lucky and have a Jackie child who just goes like, I need to go to bed like a 40-year-old in my teen years. Good night.
A 40-year-old? I'm what?
A 50, 60-year-old? I don't know. I don't know. The chart didn't go past 18. I don't know when anyone's supposed to go to bed after that. Well, in any case, I'd love to see an expansion like you're talking about, Alan, in this chapter. Like, I think the recommendations are good. I think a lot of folks are tired of dealing with sleep, and as long as their child is not doing anything like really unsafe or dangerous, we kind of just let it slide. And that's not always the best recommendation. However, it may be the best a lot of families are going to do at that age. So I think looking at it from that ACT perspective, including your child in the discussion, that is not it's not it's sort of there's a subtext there that the child's involved at this age in these discussions, but I don't think it's as explicit as you laid out. I would love to see some more on that in an updated edition. All right.
Oh,
We're rounding it to the last chapter. I love it.
Well, I've been wanting to find a place to interject one of my like for further reading moments, and here feels as good as any. There's a really good article from Frontiers in Psychology from 2016 by B.L. Wang et al. Because there's like 10 authors on this thing, but it's called Developmental Trajectories of Sleep Problems from Childhood to Adolescence, both predict and are predicted by emotional and behavior problems. And it is one of the like few studies that really lays out that children who do not sleep become adolescents and even adults who have behavioral and emotional issues. And for behavioral problems especially, there's this like bi-directional relationship that if you start to have behavioral issues related to not enough sleep, it worsens the sleep problems.
I didn't hear that, but I certainly know that challenging behavior can worsen with sleep problems, but I did not hear that any research on it going the other way. So that's a good citation there, Alan. Thank you.
Yeah, and it's just a newer. It's 2016, so I think it's very like early research. But they say that our findings are indicative of the bidirectional relationship between sleep problems and behavioral problems specifically. So I think it's definitely worth a read for us in our field.
Nice. Chapter 10 goes into some sleep issues, bedwetting, nightmares, night terrors. It mostly comes down to, you can look through, but it's mostly that a lot of these things can happen naturally. Talk to your medical professional if you're worried. Otherwise, just do the minimum amount of caring you need for your child to get them back into their beds. And that's all there is to it. And then chapter 11 wraps it all up. This is, certainly goes into some of the key pieces of sleep that some of them I thought of and some of them I had not really thought of. But sort of looking at the idea of those kind of motivating operations around sleep as a powerful component of your treatment. So it's not all about what you are doing. It's a lot about how you are setting up the environment. but also some of the ideas that we talked about in terms of going to sleep is a lot of teaching your child how to follow instructions, how to manage their emotions, and how to make the, quote, solo journey from good night, sleep tight to good morning, how nice to see you, end quote. And again, the importance of the kind of bond you have with your child in this process being key to whether it is or is not successful. Any final thoughts before we get to the last line of the book?
No, I thought you did a great job summing that one up.
He uses the word ontological predicate, and I love that. I love the joke that he has about that, which people will have to read because I'm not going to spoil it.
Got to read the whole book just to get to that joke.
Yep.
But it's not that long a book, so you should be fine. All right, so some final thoughts. I think we all enjoyed this book. It's nice, it's quick, it's to the point. It's written in a very cool voice, which is Dr. Friman's voice. And if you are just kind of trying to get a basic understanding of some of the steps that would go into sort of the average family, caregiver, sleep dynamic, this book really covers a lot of those things. It's not going to cover everything. It is in need of an update, not because everything in it is out of date, but I think we brought up some areas where I know I would love to hear more about Dr. Friman's thoughts on some of these areas almost 20 years on, because I bet they would be very fascinating to hear and I think be really meaningful updates. But I mean, I think still is a good primer. If you're like, I don't know much about sleep, okay, this is a great quick read that you can take in on the beach and have a general sense of some of the principles you want to be thinking about when you are talking about sleep for your own children or with your partner or with clients and stakeholders. Any other final thoughts before we get to the last line?
None.
All right. So, again, I like to always go over the last line because I think every book needs to have a good last line, even if it is a nonfiction science book. And this one is okay. Given how well I think we've lauded Dr. Friman's writing style, this last line's kind of, it's mid.
No, the true last line is good night. And that's perfect.
Okay, that one's perfect. It does fit in. But I put the sentence before because good night seemed a little too short. So this is on the last page 135. Whether your child is an infant, a toddler, a preschooler, or an elementary school, middle school, or high school student, or a combination thereof, I wish you all the best as you try some new ways to send him or her off on time to sleep of sweet dreams and needed rest. And then the last line, good night. So it is okay. I don't know why. I expected a little more, but it's fine.
I'm totally into it.
All right. Your mileage may vary on the last line. It's fine. It certainly does sum up what the book is trying to do. And with that, we are at the end of this latest book club. We hope you enjoyed listening to our Good Night, Sweet Dreams, I Love You, Now Get into Bed and Go to Sleep book club, which is not going to be the full title of the episode because it is too long to type over and over again. We like this book. We think you will enjoy it. It is a very quick read. So even if you don't, hey, you won't even know you don't enjoy it and the time will be over. Much like not remembering how we taught our kids how to go to sleep. It'll just be a hazy memory at some point in the future. For folks listening to this on our Patreon feed, thank you very, very much for listening. Don't forget, if you are on the Patreon page, patreon.com/ABA Inside Track, you are able to get a code that's only on that main page and only unlocked for you to get a 100% discount off on the 2 CEs you will be getting for this episode. If you're listening to this in the free feed, hey, you could get that code too. Just subscribe at the $10 and up level at patreon.com/ABA Inside Track to get all of our book clubs. Or you can just kind of get this like you normally get CEs. Either way, code or no code, you are going to need to know the second secret code word, which is BRICK. BRICK. It is a thing that you build other things with. That's a brick made of clay or stone. I don't know how bricks are made. What am I, a bricklayer? I don't know. I don't know this stuff. Brick. All right. And that brings us to the end of the episode. We hope you enjoyed hearing all about this book. We've got many, many more book clubs to come and that have already come out in our feed. We love doing these book clubs, so we hope you enjoy listening to them. Since this is a book club episode, I'm not going to go into all the special plugs, but I do want to say certainly thank you for our patrons for subscribing. And thanks to Diana and Jackie and Alan for being here for our long, long discussion of this book. And now I guess it's time for bed. Or
Good
dinner.
night.
Good night.
All right, but until our next full-length episode, good night and keep responding. Bye!